So when I was getting started, it was like, okay, I know I don't want to work for someone else. I didn't have a lot of capital, but I had time and focus and a desire that I knew I wanted to do it. And I was connecting with people who were just able to make money online. I was like, okay, how can I do this? How can I just have my laptop and a Wi-Fi connection and make money?
Just work for yourself. Be your own boss. Do it right. Take advantage. What a lot of people do, I think, is they're like, I'm going to invent a new widget.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you work for a company, you're trained to do this, and that has value. Why are you looking to go try to invent a widget when you don't know anything about manufacturing? What's up, everybody? Welcome to the podcast, and we are going over the 3 stages of building a business from nothing. We will also be talking about the difference of building a business versus buying a business. Now, this is an important process because these 3 stages are very unique and different. And I feel a lot of people get stuck in them or don't understand even how to go to the next stage, so they can't move forward. I got George here with me. George is down here for our Inner Circle event we're holding, and he helped me build self-storage income from nothing. And he had also started his own business in web design out of college. And so we're going to talk a little bit about here this process and how you get started and what that's like, including the finance side. Like, what does it look like on the money side? And when should I make money? When should I not? When should I hire people? How do you know if you have a good idea? We're going to dive into all of that. So with that, George, thanks for being on. This is a great topic. We talk about this stuff obviously all the time. It was actually brought up because we had a lunch meeting yesterday, and George was going over the P&Ls and balance sheets of 2 or 3 of our companies. And as we were going through it, I happened to have my son, Tristan, who came along. And so we were discussing those finances, and I was kind of like, okay, Tristan, look at this, and showing him. And I was like, let me talk to you and kind of describe how it got to this point, right? How you go from nothing to revenue of millions and millions of dollars, and what are the main differences. And as we were discussing that, you talked to him about your business and starting up that website. And we're like, this is an important topic, so let's talk about it. So thanks for being on here and talking about it with me.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited to be here. I think that a lot of people understand the idea of like, okay, owning a business, that's great, but there's so many different levels to it. Every business is different. They're all at different stages. And so I think this is something that whether you already own a business and are trying to grow and scale it, or you're looking to start your own business, there's something that you should be able to take away from this. So excited to talk about this today.
Absolutely. I mean, starting out, obviously it has these challenges where you don't have anything and you don't have money. You don't know. It seems so overwhelming. And a lot of times that is because you compare it to businesses in one of the other stages. And that obviously is overwhelming, but that's also wrong. You're literally not supposed to be or act like that.
Right.
That is not correct. In fact, I am a big believer in bootstrapped businesses, not major venture capital businesses. I've only participated in one business that was more of large scale venture capital. And that was very different due to a few things. First of all, the owners were the operators. We knew exactly what we wanted. And the very people that were investing in it were going to use it. So the demand was there. We already had our customers. So it was a unique situation. Other than that, I do not like the idea of saying, I'm going to go pitch to investors, then I'm going to get all this money, and then I'm going to go start a business.
Right.
Those fail at alarming rates, and I think that's a horrible way to go. Now, that is counterintuitive to, I think, how most people think about businesses. What they're trying to do is essentially skip the first stage, go straight into the second stage and third. The first stage we talk about, and how I put it is, it's service. It's a service stage. And by service, I don't mean necessarily the business is service, right? It could be products. It could be all sorts of stuff. I mean, you're servicing the market with something and that you're doing, that you have to offer, but it's just you. You're trying things, right? That next stage is that you have an actual business. And business, all I mean is you have processes and systems, and then you have employees that execute. Then the final stage is enterprise. Now, why these stages are clearly defined to me is value. So if you went to the marketplace and you have a service-based business, you're gonna sell that business at like 1.5 times, because nobody wants to buy a business that is dependent on you. And so if they do, first of all, you're going to be under contract. You have to stay in it, and they're only going to pay you basically what's coming in. So if you make $100,000, they're going to pay you $100,000, but then you're going to be under contract for that time. A business is something where they can buy because they can see how it can grow. And even though you may be running it, they could probably step in and run it, or they could hire somebody, or there's something to do with it. Those are going to usually trade at, let's call something more like 2 to 4 times value, maybe 5 times value, depending on where that business is at. But that's a big difference. Obviously, it goes from 100,000 of value to 500,000 of value. But then you get to enterprise. Enterprise is where it can start to really scale, and it's begun to scale. So you have growth rates. You can show that. You have management teams in place. Most of the time, that owner could literally just go away, and it wouldn't stop anything to do with the business. It has intrinsic value. There's more to the business than just what it does. It has that niche, that product. We'll go into that. That trades at much, much, much higher amounts. You're talking 10 plus X. So the difference is 100,000, 500,000 to $1 million plus, right? On $100,000 in revenue type of thing. So that it's a big difference. If you make more than that, it scales, obviously. If you go to $1 million, it's $1 million versus 5 versus 10 plus. But that's kind of a broad overview. We're going to dive into the individual process of particularly starting, and then we'll go into buying and identifying what stage of the business and what you should pay in value. So let's start out with that. Just starting out. College, you don't have anything. How do you get started? What should you expect? What should that business look like? How did you start? Like, what was the process of with starting from nothing?
Yeah, for sure. And so I think too, like listening to you talk about this is like knowing the different stages is like how involved do you have to be for the business to work? And in the very beginning, like you have to do everything, like understanding that. And so for me, it was like when I left college, I just knew that like I was just stubborn in school. I was like, I'm not gonna be able to listen to people and take orders, or like I hate the idea of like this is the way we're gonna do it because that's how we've always done it. Like that was just like frustrating for me. And I think that's why a lot of people end up starting a business, because they're horrible employees. Like that's usually how it starts. Like, hey, I'm not good at this. Yep. I need to go.
I have to have another option.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's like first just like understanding who you are, because it's like we've definitely glorified the idea of starting a business, and it's like, but a lot of it sucks and it's hard. Yeah. And so like I know
the vast majority, 90+% of all entrepreneurs make less than if they just got a job.
Right.
So, and two, it's significantly less.
Yeah.
This is not like small amounts, right? I mean, it's significantly less. In some cases, it's 50%. Yet they work all the time.
Yeah.
They have all the risk. And so I think you need to understand that it is not only not for everyone, but you kind of got to have a path or a process to it and how you're going to break away or quit. But you're right. A lot of us start businesses because we're unemployable, because we would just suck.
Yeah, exactly. And so when I was getting started, for me, it was like, okay, I know I don't want to work for someone else. I didn't have a lot of capitals, but I had time and focus and a desire that I knew I wanted to do it. And I was connecting with people who were just able to make money online. And I was like, okay, how can I do this? How can I just have my laptop and a Wi-Fi connection and make money?
At the time, like, and I remember back at that was like magic.
Yeah.
It was like the first time you start to hear about it, you're like,
this can't be true.
What? Yeah, this is wrong. This isn't right. You can't just have a laptop and make money.
Yeah. And so like even in high school, I used to just like, I just remember getting my first laptop and being up till 4 a.m. just figuring stuff out on it. And then I was like, oh, I can make money doing this. And I was like, okay. So I started just like finding ways to teach myself how to code and design websites and everything. And I remember, this goes back to the time and money situation. I started applying for just like gig jobs online. I got on Upwork, all the different things, but Upwork is what just like stuck with me. But my first client paid me, I had to work till 1 a.m. on Thanksgiving, and I made $24 total. But I was like so pumped. I was like,
You made money.
Yeah, I was like, this is my own money. I didn't have to go like work for somebody else, collect a paycheck. And I was like, that $24 was like, I was just like, I can do this. Like, and so I look at like when you're getting started, you can either spend two things. You can spend your money or you can spend your time. And like eventually your dollar per hour goes up and up and up, and so you can spend more money, but at the beginning you just gotta put your time into it.
And frankly, that's the advantage. Like a lot of people, they're like, I don't have anything, so I don't have an advantage. And I'm like, that's literally your advantage.
Yeah.
What you can do in that phase of life is insane. I cannot do that today.
Yeah.
Like I literally can't. I have a family, I have kids, I have bills to pay. I can't go back and work for very, very little and sleep on the couch with four guys in an apartment, right? Eat ramen noodles every day and work 24/7. That advantage is, I think it is so vastly overlooked, where when you're starting out, that is probably one of the most important things, because even if you're older and you're starting out, you got to make sacrifices in time when you're starting a business.
100%.
So that is a superpower that I think young people look over, and they equate it to having lots of money or having money, when actually people with money and the businesses, that's what they wish they had. That's why they give money to entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Because like, I'm not going to, and I can't do that.
And so that is super important. The other piece too is that like, then when you're fueling that business, that people generally, when they're like, hey, I want to start a business, they're just like, I'm going to quit my job, go make money and replace my income right away. Like it doesn't work like that.
No.
Like I was still working trade jobs and then going home at night and just like moonlighting, whatever you call it, so that way I could make money after, and I wasn't touching any of it. And I was just pouring and pouring and pouring it all back into growing.
I did that for years too with our business. In 6 years.
And then on the like your business has to be tied into your personal, like you have to make sacrifices. You can't go out and you're going to lose friends because they're going to be out at night and you're going to be home working. But it's like, if you have that delayed gratification, like that's when you have to be able to know, like, this is going to suck for a little while, but it's going to make a big difference in the long run.
Absolutely.
And for me, it was just like, to me, it was cool to be able to be like, again, now I'm going back to like, I can actually make money on my own, not have to report to somebody else, not do things because that's how we've always done it. And then you just like, part of it too is being able to survive long enough that opportunity gets in your way. Like something like there's always luck in pieces of it. And like even how we met, like we just got connected on an online job posting, and it just like, who knew what it would turn into now today. Exactly. And so, but like, if I wasn't just continuing to push myself and put myself out there, like that wouldn't have happened. So like it's
luck comes from circumstances that you create.
Right. And so if you're at that service-based level of just getting started, like the best thing that you can do that I think is like, get your personal expenses in line, like have an understanding of where you're currently at, because it's going to tie into your business one way or another, and then be able to find a way of like, what skill can I provide to somebody? And it's like, that could be a product like you're saying, or it could be like, it could be any single thing to it. But it's just simply like, how can I provide a service to somebody? You don't even have to be an expert in it. You just have to be better at the customer that you're providing to. Like, there's so many things with web design where I felt like I actually took too long because I was trying to learn, or like I need to do another course, or I need to finish this program, and then finally I was like, I just gotta start and just start reaching out to people. Yeah. And so like, you don't have to be the best web designer, or the best landscaper, or whatever it is. You just gotta be able to provide a service.
The entrepreneurship, you always had things, you build the plane on the way down and everything. And the point of all of that is, if you wait till you are good enough to do it, that it's a chicken and egg. That's not how it works. And business doesn't work. You can't create an outcome without creating it. Like it's a simple concept, but it's something that most people are not willing to do. They're not willing to go through the process, understanding that they're not there yet. And the problem with that is, they want to be paid. You want to be paid on the outcome. Like, I want to be paid and have a business that is working and functioning. And I don't want to be paid at the rate when I'm not good.
Right.
And when I have to build it. And the understanding that there's a long time. The way you condense that is obviously through trial and error and work. And that's why it's a superpower. Like, if you work nights, weekends, and you sacrifice personal life and all these things, what's really happening is your growth rate and your understanding, you're compounding at a massive rate. So in 3 years, you are so far past where you were.
Right.
I mean, my 20s, that was it. I did nothing but work.
Yeah.
It was, even when I got married, the conversation was, listen, we're either going to be really rich or we're going to be poor living on the streets. And you got to understand.
And there's no middle.
There's no middle. And I'm a builder, and this is the route I'm going in life. If you don't want to be on this ride, don't be, because I don't know how to be different.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm so stuck on this. And so it was one of those things where, for me, it was really important that I had somebody in my life that supported that, understood that, and to know there's going to be ups and downs. We're going to have to sacrifice. And she did. And I was gone. There was times where, frankly, my wife felt like a single mother.
Yeah.
Like, she's like, you're traveling, constantly gone, everything else. But she supported me. It was what we were trying to do. Those sacrifices, though, that frankly I made for a decade. Like, I there's this period in my life where I'm like, I don't even know what was going on.
Yeah.
Like, it's like one day I just lifted my head up and it was like, holy cow, where am I? Right? Like, I hadn't even paused yet to take in any changes that had happened. And to be honest, I don't think I recognized myself. Mm-hmm. And not in a bad way, in a good way. I was scarred. I was tired, but I was someone that I didn't recognize because that person was more resilient than I was when I got started early on. They had more wisdom as well as knowledge. And that came through hardship, right? And then too, I was in an economic position that I didn't imagine.
Right.
It was past anything I had. And that is a reality, I think, of starting a business and running a business. I'm not saying it's 10 years. I'm not saying, once again, my goals were very, very different. I was starting and running multiple businesses at a time. I have never had one job or even one business. That's never existed for me.
Yeah.
And so I'm in, I think, more of an extreme level. You don't need to do that, but you have to sacrifice and you have to say, I'm going to do this. It is just, I'm like a dog on a bone, and you need to be obsessed.
I think something important too that you're talking about is just like alignment with Tessa. And so like I had the same thing with Sarah, who's my wife now, but girlfriend at the time, of just like there was ebbs and flows where like she was definitely making more money than I did. And so like this idea of like,
we lived off of Tessa for like 3 years.
Yeah. And the idea of like self-made is like just not true.
No, doesn't exist. There's no such thing as self-made. It is the worst concept in the world, because what that is it's a driver of pride. The most money that I've ever made in my life was after I became paralyzed, because I couldn't rely on myself. I compounded my wealth at realms that I didn't even understand after I was paralyzed.
Right.
From companies I started in a wheelchair when I could only work a handful of hours a day, because I would literally like fall asleep and my brother would have to take me out of the office in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And that is when I made the most wealth. If I would have understood that earlier on, I think I would have been obviously way better off, but there is no such thing. And I've relied on my family tremendously. I went out and got mentors galore that I'm like, I need help. You need to help me. And it's nothing about it was independent at all.
Yeah.
People that go that route or even believe that or think that, first of all, it's driven by a very false sense of their own abilities, potential, a lack of understanding of business, that the whole point of it is that everyone lifts up.
Yeah.
Customers, employees, everybody else. And so what I tend to find is that is a driver of it. The driver behind it is simply pride. Whereas with a business, you need to be so obsessed on the outcome that you are sacrificing yourself.
Yeah.
Ego and pride have destroyed probably the most entrepreneurs that I've ever seen. Those are the two things that just kill entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And so I guess like to recap, like the services for me is like, that is the place where you can be the most stubborn and just like you're being frugal and you're just like figuring out what works. And it's like,
Basics.
Because as we go and talk about these other topics, like it gets harder to do that. And it's like,
Yes.
we're always talking about this now with like our growing businesses of like, how do we still keep a startup mindset? Because it's like, you get just get more bogged down. And so like, if you're in right now in this beginning service base, like embrace that, because if you succeed in growing it, you're going to miss a lot of those aspects of when you were just starting out.
Being a scrappy entrepreneur is an advantage, not a disadvantage.
Yeah.
And most big businesses, you're right, and enterprises run into the problem that they're no longer acting like they were at first. Because at first, you don't have the luxury of anything outside the simply surviving. And people forget that the biggest and the best businesses in the world are not the most advanced, not the ones that have the most money. They are the ones that survive.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that complete the goal and the task at any cost. So this was a great thing. That was actually something that the market learned the hard way earlier this year with DeepSeek. So all of a sudden China came out and showed that their AI platform DeepSeek could perform at levels like our AI, and we had actually limited them from getting the high processing chips. They didn't have those resources and tools like we did. So I think there was this idea they couldn't. Well, what they did is they trained the AI to build in a way that the algorithms would be way more efficient, so they didn't need the processing capabilities.
Right.
So they became hyper efficient on less. And all of a sudden, the big companies that had billions of dollars were looking at them going, oh my gosh, you did this with a fraction of what we have. And then they're learning from them. And that erased massive value from stocks and market shares in the United States. And it shows how, frankly, they got complacent and they were relying on the government to protect them. And the ones that weren't and said, these are the resources that we have, we're going to do, they caught up to them. You would think that shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
They have billions and billions of dollars. They have the United States government protecting them. This scrappy company in China that had millions, right? They did get millions, but I mean, that's nothing in this game.
Right.
They caught up to them. They were riding on their laurels. They got lazy.
I mean, another example of that is Blockbuster and Netflix. Like Blockbuster's looking at Netflix like there's this just tiny company. They're never going to compete with us. And then Netflix was young and scrappy and able to just totally pivot the entire filming industry or streaming industry. And so I think something that I preach to the SSI team a lot is like, hey, as we grow, like one of our biggest challenges is making sure that 5-minute decisions don't take weeks to just like bog us down. And it's like, that's just something that as a startup, if it's just you or just you and one other person, you're just like back and forth so quick and just things are getting done. But just like as your team grows, there's a lot of great things about it, but there's just things you have to be mindful of, because something that used to take you an hour to sit down and do now takes meetings and then follow-ups and then paperwork and all these things that just can slow you down indefinitely.
And they may seem small, and you run the risk of quality control over it there. And I always talk about this. There is a battle in every single business between sales and admin. It's about quality. It's about not making mistakes. It's about all these things, which everybody's like, yeah, that's good. We don't want to get in trouble and on. But then it comes at the risk of the business growing, innovating, and it actually stops the machine. I've had that happen in my businesses. I've seen it happen. And to be frank, you get a few departments in a business that start to stop the business from working. Mm-hmm. So there is this internal struggle once you have a business, especially when you're going to enterprise, to say we have to do these things, but these things can't be the reason we do things.
Yeah.
And they become it. When you're starting out, everything's simple for the most part. Most entrepreneurs are making mistakes, probably even breaking laws they don't even know about. Oh, I was supposed to do that when I hired somebody? I don't know. I just said, you want to work? I'm going to pay you. Right? But there comes this learning curve, and the goal is to test, especially when you're starting out and you're just selling a service. It's just you going to the market. The whole point is simply to test the market. Right. Will the market accept my product or service, and at what price will they? A lot of people forget that if you can make a widget for $10 and you can sell it on the market for $5, you think you have a profit margin of 50%. That's a gross profit margin,
Right.
not a net profit margin. So this is a common mistake starting out. They say, I can do this and I can get paid, or I can provide the market at this and I can make twice as much. This is a great, great business. But that's only because it's them.
Yeah.
There is nothing else. In order to grow a business, you have two ways to do it. You can do it quantity or volume, meaning the size of the transaction. So you need to do a lot less transactions if the transaction you're doing is $1 million.
Right.
But if you're doing transactions at thousands or hundreds or $5 or $2, you have to do it in volume. Volume needs infrastructure like distribution. It needs marketing. Most people forget that just because a market will accept something, it doesn't mean they know about you.
Right.
So you have to find the customers, you have to convert the customers, then you have to process, then you have to service. That is all capital that needs to be used. When you are starting out direct individually, you don't need that. So what works for you starting out doesn't necessarily mean it will work for you in a functioning business, and definitely not as an enterprise. So understanding how you put forth services and goods or that product that you're doing, you need to sell it at a margin that is healthy, not enough for you to make money and just live on.
Right.
You need it to build a business. And I think that's the biggest differentiator when people move from one to the other. It's that the business that works when you're small and individual doesn't mean that it'll work as an actual functioning business. There's not enough money. So the question is, can we sell more and enough to give us enough capital to finally hire people, to actually get our name out and do marketing? Or is that not possible? Where most people end up is when they're small, going to that business is, I'm not going to hire somebody because that takes money away from me.
Right.
I don't want to do those things because it's straight out of your pocket. This is a common mistake and understanding that when you are doing these things, it is taking money from you as the entrepreneur. So your business, it makes $50,000. This was very common in the franchise world that I saw. I'm buying a franchise, it makes $50,000 in profit. Now they're working in the franchise, but they're not paying themselves. So it's not making $50,000 in profit. You're making $50,000 in income.
Right.
Because you're working, but you're not paying yourself. And so you're paying yourself in profit. That's not profit. You have a job. You don't have a business, right? A business would be that you buy a franchise, you have people working in the franchise that makes it operate, and what's left over after you've paid people, not you to do the thing, then it makes $50,000. Now you have $50,000 in profit.
Right.
That delicate balance right there is the thing that almost stops all ventures from becoming businesses.
Right. Well, I think too, that's like the missing piece to that equation is time. And so like if you have that franchise at $50,000 and you're saying it's $50,000 in profit, but you're the one doing all the work, like the time invested from you doesn't show up on your P&L, right?
Yes.
And so, but if you have to pay somebody else to do it, then that does show up on the P&L and the salary. And so being able to like, as you're making that shift from service to business, it's like you're removing yourself from the business. In other words, if you walk away for a day, the business can survive without you.
Yes.
If you're in a service, it's unlikely. Like,
yeah,
and
it's not going to happen.
In order for you to make that next step, and a lot of things too, is the business is ready for the next step, but the owner isn't. And so it's like being able to be like, okay, I need to allow myself to remove so that way the business can grow.
Yep. And the only way that it can grow is through sacrifices. So lots of times when you're like, all of a sudden, I have this service, I'm making $100,000 a year. Now I live like I'm making $100,000 a year. And then yet you want to grow, but you're like, I literally can't. I'm living on this money. And so then the only way to grow is you borrow money or get investors. Well, then you're giving up equity. And so this is why most services and single operators and that they prematurely say or think and go in the mindset of I have a business and this is profit, where you need to use that capital because it is so valuable at the start. Every dollar that your service is producing, the business needs it. Not for you just to go spend money. Like that doesn't affect your business. So you are the biggest liability and asset in the business. So all you're looking at is, am I going to be more of an asset or more of a liability?
Right.
And when it comes to capital, you are a huge liability, right? And so that money needs to go to employees. So if you look at my first employee, well, if I do that, it takes away money. There should be a direct correlation to that employee making you more money. The problem becomes is I want to advertise, but if I advertise, I can only do so many jobs. I can only sell so many products because I can make them. Only make so many, right? So then you look at it and you go, okay, if I hire somebody else, they can do this admin work. They can do the back end work. They can work with customers, and then I can fulfill, which means then I can fulfill twice as much.
Right.
All right. Now I can take $50,000, hire that person, and then I should be able to maintain $100,000 because, right, I've invested in that person, so I can do twice as much. Now, that is hard when you're talking about most service businesses don't even make $100,000, right? So all of a sudden you're going, I have to work, and a lot of people do this. They work to pay other people.
Yeah.
I did this for years. I worked another job because all the money went to paying other people. I had like 15 employees, and I was working a full-time job on the side. And that was because the capital was so valuable to me that I was like, I would rather build it in a way that it can operate without me than build it so it's dependent on me.
And you need the income.
And I need the income. Yeah. I need to live, yet the income needs to go within the business, and I would be the biggest liability of it.
Right.
Now, that is, once again, there is just no real easy ways about this. You're either putting your own money in, you're sacrificing money that you should be taking out of it, or you're getting investors or capital. The problem becomes is there's a tail end. You know, it's almost like you have a dip where that's your revenue goes down because you're investing into the business, right? But then it'll go back up. But the tail end of that is it's not overnight.
Yeah.
So how long will that go on? And then at the end, will that work? If I invest in this business, will I actually get something out of it? And that's why most service or single operators that time, they don't ever get to business. That's tough. That is not easy.
Yeah.
And lots of times you don't even know if the market will accept it.
Could you talk about for a second, like as you're talking about the ascension, like some people don't want to grow.
They don't. Absolutely.
And so how does that work in the sense of like, because a lot of people might believe like, well, businesses, if you're not growing, you're dying. So like, how do you stay in the service?
That's my belief.
Yeah. So how do you stay in one, like what if you don't want to get to enterprise level?
Yeah.
How do you continue to grow without?
First of all, that's totally fine. And I tell this to people all the time. There is nothing wrong with saying, I don't want to work a job, so I'm creating my own job. Mm-hmm. That's great. You're your own boss.
Right.
That's awesome. But you then have the other side where if you don't work, the very source that generates that income is at risk. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you have a job and you don't work, you literally go on vacations, you take time off, you're like, I'm not doing anything after 5, you're not risking the source of that income. So you can go back the next day and it'll still be there.
Right.
You have the risk of getting fired, but that's different than the business not existing.
Right.
Because then you can go to another source of revenue. When you are an individual, it's totally reasonable to go, I want to build a lifestyle where I provide services to the market and I get paid for them. And I don't want to have a boss. And I also don't want to grow. I'm making $65,000 a year. I have very little expenses. That's great. I can travel. I can do that. The problem becomes is the world doesn't care.
Yeah.
So when I remember this in the early 2000s, you had people that were talking about like $35 to $45, $50,000 a year. Mm-hmm. And they were like, I'm living the dream.
I'm set.
Today, no. The vast majority of those people end up having to go get a job.
Right.
And that's not bad, but what it shows is a lack of understanding. Mm-hmm. So you need to be able to increase your service prices to keep up with inflation, right? Or you need to figure out how you can optimize and do more.
Right.
So you need to do more with less work. And that way it provides you a system to keep doing that job. And you can do it, be paid at an amount that is adjusted for inflation. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, if something happens to you, that's where the problem becomes.
Right.
So a lot of people will leave it simply out of the fact that they have families, they have different things like that. They want vacations, they want the benefit. The market pays you to not start businesses. So the market actually pays you more than you're worth. So if you have a job, people are like, I'm not paid what I'm worth. Actually, you're paid probably more than you're worth 99.9999% of the time.
Yeah.
Because the market is paying you that. Because if that was true, you would always just go do it on your own.
Right.
Always. If you're saying that I make $60,000 a year, but I'm really worth 150 in the marketplace, then go do it.
Yeah.
Why aren't you doing it?
Right.
Right? Because you think you're worth something doesn't mean anything. Like, I get it. Your mama told you, you were worth $1 million, right? But the marketplace doesn't love you like your mama does. So it doesn't work that way. So most people are paid much, much higher than even if they went out individually and did that thing. That is not a problem. That's a good thing. Mm-hmm. It really is. That's a good thing. Now, I get it. There's a lot of people that are going with inflation, with everything else. That's not true. I should be making more money. What I'm telling you is go do it then. And I believe and I think people should. Because there is 100% areas where they would be better providing that service to the market. But your pay doesn't equate value.
Right.
So when you look at, and everybody forgets the total compensation, you have vacations, you have benefits, you have security, you have less work hours by far.
Yeah.
Right? And you have no risk. That is included in what I would call your pay or the value you receive. This is why when you go to the marketplace, an employer is going to pay you $100,000 plus benefits, plus time off. You have no risk.
Yeah.
And you get, vacation, everything else. Your total compensation is like $150,000, $200,000.
Yeah.
That's why entrepreneurs make vastly far. They make less in income, not including all of that.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that I look at and say, your job is one of the greatest assets you'll ever have. It is. And two, if you want to be worth more, even in your job and pay more, do the things that employees don't. And if you want to actually get that yield from the marketplace, because and a lot of people do, they're literally in the job. Entrepreneurship is the best kind of entrepreneurship in the world. Mm-hmm. That means I'm working in a place and I'm going to start businesses and services doing the things that I know. That's the starting out. So if you're going to go start a service business, the requirement basically is that you have knowledge or you have an idea, product that you can sell something to the market. That's it. We live in an information age. Literally start DMing people.
Right.
Literally go out and start knocking doors. I did that for years.
Yeah.
Till I was like 28. I literally knocked businesses' doors. I would take 2 days a week and I would go door to door to door. I would sit in a conference room, not my cubicle because it was too loud if I sat in a cubicle, and I would call 100 people, every morning. That is what I did to try to make more money because I was only paid on commissions. I didn't get paid on anything else.
Right.
That's what entrepreneurs do. Right. And so if you have that, you can work a job, start a business on the side, but lots of times you can do it within the business and get paid. Go to your employer, say, listen, what I do could be a revenue generating source. Here's how we should do it. Here's what we could do. I want to pay more. I can make you more money. Right. Like I can turn this in. And lots of times employers go, great, thank you. You're building this out. You're making
more money.
You're making more money. I'm saving you. I'm doing all this. So I'm increasing my value. Or you just go do it to the marketplace and literally turn around and sell it to your employer. Say, hey, I'm leaving. And I can't tell you how many people done this. I'm leaving not because I don't love the company, not anything else. I'm exploring this endeavor and I understand that the problem that I can solve for you, I can also solve for others. So here's the gig. I'm going to do that same thing for you, but I'm going to do it at a discounted rate. Mm-hmm. So you still get me and that outcome and you have to pay me less. Why? Because I'm not going to work 9 to 5 for you anymore. I'm going to provide this outcome, but then I can go get 3 people.
Right.
So you're going to pay me 20% less, but then I have 3 customers and now I make, 2.5 times more. So these are the creative get it done solutions that people go out and start doing service. When you're in college, you will do things at a discounted rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Bob is going to charge you. I had a plumber that charged me $1,500 to fix a toilet. I could just buy a new toilet.
Yeah.
like if there was a young guy that was like, literally, this is a $200 job, I'll come do it all day long. Yeah. All day long, right? Yeah. And I think people they vastly underestimate their ability to do that because you have businesses and enterprises that have those expense loads and they have people that need to earn lots of money. And frankly, even in today, they have more jobs than they can get to.
Yeah.
When we go to hire somebody for landscaping, anything else, those service world jobs, I pay a premium to simply get the job done instead because they're just so busy.
Yeah.
So I love that. And I love that idea. Just work for yourself. Be your own boss. Do it right. Take advantage. What a lot of people do, I think, mess up is they're like, I'm going to invent a new widget.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you work for a company. You're trained to do this. And that has value. Why are you looking to go try to invent a widget when you don't know anything about manufacturing?
And they're going to quit their job to go invent that widget and
Exactly.
lose all their income. Yeah.
And then like, if it fails, I'll just go back. And I'm like, well, why don't you take what you do and just provide that to the marketplace?
Yeah.
So it is a total reasonable thing for people to do that, be their own boss. What it comes down to, though, is if you're literally able to.
Right.
And I think most people would say no based upon what they're doing and living in their circumstances. I need to get paid. I need those other things. And they really don't want to.
Yeah.
They don't like having a boss, but that not liking something is very different than wanting or to be someone else or do something else so much that you are going to sacrifice, you're going to take on risk. They're just not the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about service. We talked about growing into the business. We went onto the side of talking about like, how do you know if you want to grow or how do you not grow? And then what about the last piece? Like what's the enterprise?
So yeah, there's a key thing. When we move to the business, a business is you have employees, you're doing the same thing you did, you're just doing it at a larger basis. And I wouldn't say it's scale, but you can produce that outcome at volume and magnitude. You can charge premiums. You have people that work for you that generate revenue and people that manage that. That's a business, right?
Yeah.
If you're a single person, it's not really a business. That is your thing that you're doing, which that's not bad. Once again, like we covered. In fact, that's amazing. I think more people should do it. You want to take that single thing though and turn it into a business. You can look at and figure out how you can. And a lot of stuff, that's like what you did with me. You're like, hey, I got an idea. Why don't we do this and this? And I'm like, cool, dude. I don't have time for any of that. Go build it. I'm right here. Let's do it. What do you need? Right. And you could turn that into a big company.
Yeah.
And so what you were doing is you were taking that service and you turned it into a business. Then we and on that journey, then we were servicing, we were giving information, we were doing teaching, we had some educational stuff, but that wasn't an enterprise. That was still us working right to provide. Enterprise means you have a core value that distinguishes you from the rest of the marketplace, that creates need or demand for you. This is where technology comes in a big way. We did this on the brokerage side, where we insert technology that the service that is being offered is performing and able to deliver at a way that other people can't do. Now, there's more to us than just the service, right? There's more to you than selling a widget and all you're doing is competing with another widget.
Right.
The way that you have enterprise value in that is now we own infrastructure. We own the manufacturing.
Yeah.
We own all this distribution. That's how you become an enterprise. So now you have something that you aren't, that your competitors don't. You're not just comparing a price. Most people get into enterprise by massive capital injections. Once again, we can build the manufacturing and we can lower the cost of our product by 50%. We can undercut our customer and take market share. I don't like that. The reason I don't like that is it's very capital intensive and your business model is to compete on price. Instead, I like internal value adds that increase the value and make you not compete. So I look at blue oceans where instead of competing with my competitors, I want to just say, oh, they don't do what we do.
Right.
So, and that's when I built a brokerage firm that we sold for millions of dollars 2 years, 3 years later, 2.5 years later. And the whole thing that I did, I went in, I'm like, I know this, I know how to sell it. Out of my wheelchair, I'm like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new way to use these two technologies to do underwriting. So when I went to compete, it was simply, oh yeah, well, you can look at, they are brokeraging out their business. I'm like, yeah, but I'm the only one that has this. So if you want this, I'm your guy. If you don't, go to somebody else. Boom, next person. Want that? Yes, I'm your guy, the only guy.
Yeah.
You don't? Next. That cuts through the crap. I don't need to compete on price. I say, this is what I do. This is why it's valuable. I'm your guy. If not, that's fine. You don't want that. I'm not your guy. I can move on. I've now identified directly who my customer is, the value of my service, which I don't need to compete on price. So all I need to do is get better at finding that core person and delivering my value that only comes from me. This then creates an enterprise effect because we're not just buying you producing, we're buying the infrastructure that sets you apart. So now I'm not buying, okay, you do $200,000 a year in profit because your team is working to produce that. Great. Well, $200,000 a year, maybe we could do things better. Maybe we could grow it, right? But there's also risk if these people leave. Think about how different that is than I'm buying you and you have this underwriting model, you have this tech platform, you have this data aggregation that nobody has. And now I can use that in my business, other people's business, or I can come in and I can put marketing dollars behind you. I can put $1 million behind you to find all of those customers, and I can blow your business up. That's enterprise value.
So this too for you, like I hear you say this all the time. This is Warren Buffett saying, "Hey, we're creating a moat here. Like we don't have competitors. We're playing a different game. Like, it's a whole different situation."
When we went out in storage, we did the same thing. It was simple. I go, everybody's playing a real estate game. I'm not. This is a business, not real estate.
Yeah.
I wrote a book on it. I talked on it, and everybody's like, "What are you talking about? It's literally commercial real estate." And I'm like, yep. And I'm buying commercial real estate and I'm turning them into a business. And when we did that, we focused on certain types of business activities like pricing, things like that. And we immediately brought that revenue up. It made us tens of millions of dollars. Now that equated out because we didn't have anything that was very special. And two, I tell everybody our secrets. So I literally taught an entire industry and we worked on it. So then everybody started doing that. The rise of private equity came in. So then what we did is pivot, which I've been working on for years and we just did, is our internal tech stack, which I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and spent 2 years building in revenue management system that no one in our industry does. And we just rolled that out to our assets like 3 months ago, but no one else does it. No one else can do it. We had to build an entire software platform in order to do it. So when investors come to me, I can say, I can tell you how much money this asset will make, and I can get that much out of it over these years because it works within our property management system to execute. So we can actually see the difference. We can measure it. We can know it in ways instead of just guessing or looking because we're scrubbing mass amounts of data. That is very different than somebody else coming and saying, I think the market's good and we're going to buy and the market will go up and this will make a lot of money, right? I'm coming in and saying, no, here's the system. We have it. We're the only ones that have it. And here's all these advantages from it. That makes us safer. That makes us know more. And I built that out of struggles.
Right.
So when we came out and the market changed and turned on us, and there's a lot of things that people don't think about when you're a business going to enterprise. Most enterprises come out of recessions or struggles. There's no difference with our tech stack that we own and our specific data processing that we are using is the fact that we had deals, and in those markets, our underwriting, basically everyone's did, the whole industry snapped when all of a sudden market rates dropped 20+%, which had never happened.
Right.
And so then I had struggling assets and I'm like, we should have known about this, but then it's like, how could you? We go back and there's like, we had one where public storage came in and dropped rates 60% in that market. Literally nothing. We were just struggling.
Nothing
we
could
do.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting here funding, right, these deals and everything. So we didn't want to lose money. We didn't want to lose investors' money, anything else. So I'm literally paying expenses out of our pocket, millions of dollars and everything, which is fine. That's what I wanted to sign up for. But I then thought, we need to solve this. And the way that everyone has done it in the past for underwriting, doing all these things, it doesn't work anymore because of that. So the very thing that caused this problem in the industry, I then set out to build to solve it. And that led into so much more. And so we're just like unrolling it. That turned that business into enterprise. For us within like self-storage income, take an example. And I mentioned how I did it on the brokerage services. We'll talk about, I mentioned in the real estate private equity, now we're talking about self-storage income, is we just don't have, it's just not, our community is not just education. Like everybody can teach, everybody can do that. Instead, we built a community where we bring deals, but then we're bringing in the whole entire process, which we're announcing and we've been doing it, but services. We do bookkeeping, marketing, and then our tech stack, we're packaging it so then everybody gets to use it, have it. So now they can compete at a level that is like REITs can, even if they were small.
Right.
So all of a sudden, we're not just like an educational company where information can be dropped down. We are actually the process of execution.
Yeah.
And we provide all the services. That's enterprise value, right? It is now no longer us, it's no longer teaching. It changes the value of it because we are working with these people. We're latched into their business. They produce revenue for us. We can run it. We can manage these things, but it's services. We're not property management or anything else. So that we turn that into enterprise. It's not nearly as dependent, these lines of revenue, on us or us providing it or even our team. Now, if you look at, for example, our hunting company. So I acquired a hunting company for the simple fact that when I looked at it, they took on a part of the industry or the process of customer stuff that nobody touched. Like everything was sold and done the other way. More importantly, the guy that was the entrepreneur, Daryl, great guy. I really like him. We hit it right off, just a straight shooter. He wasn't a business guy. He came to me, he's like, AJ, I don't know anything about business, but I know hunting. He was a guide, everything else. And he found out ways to take care of these massive issues of preserving the animals, the hides, everything else. And he went and worked with these companies to develop chemicals and solutions to do this. Nobody had that. It was just him. He literally, this was proprietary. There was no competition in the market, no nothing like that. So he developed an array of products predicated on this. He just didn't know really how to execute it.
Right.
And so that was a perfect fit. I can work on the execution. You have the moat, right? Because that to me is enterprise value. We can build the systems, the process, create it into a functioning, great business. We have a good moat, enterprise value. We're taking on a segment of the industry. So that's an example, instead of building it, buying it, for the same reasons though why we build and what we turn into to get to enterprise.
Yeah. I think there's a few things that I like about this is so like, especially when we talk about the hunting company, which is e-commerce based, like when you think of enterprise, it's easy to just think of, stock market, huge publicly traded companies. Like it doesn't have to mean that. It's
not at all.
To me, it's like the business can be its own living, breathing thing that like that's what enterprise is. It can have value on its own, not
big
just
companies buy you for enterprise value.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
They pay a lot of money for it.
And that's where that like equity multiple comes in. It's like the multiple is way different off that same amount of income if you have the enterprise value. That's super important to be able to be like, how can I make this more valuable without just simply having to sell more widgets?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And becoming enterprise value though, you can't do that until you've done the service and created the business.
Yeah.
Because you don't know. You're trying to build enterprise in an industry you don't know.
Well, even with the storage, like if that same market drop situation, if you didn't have the experience, you would have had you wouldn't have seen the opportunity if you just all of a sudden owned a storage facility.
It would just be like the market crushing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But you had that background of knowledge and experience where you could be like, this is actually an opportunity.
Exactly. And I think when you look at that enterprise value, it is about that deep knowledge, understanding, and looking at it from controllables and value add in a way that, like I said before, I don't want to compete with people.
Yeah.
So everybody goes and they compete on the same thing. For me, I'm like, what can I do to add value that makes our competition irrelevant?
Yeah.
And it's that when you look at enterprise value, that really is the thing about it. They have proprietary things to do the business that others don't. That can be simple things, right? That can be you own a market because you have proprietary distribution channels. That's enterprise value, right? We have manufacturing. We have patents. We have all of these different things that make it so the business itself isn't just predicated on selling and buying. There is something within it outside the normal business functions that creates value. And that value then is exaggerated in the marketplace from all your competitors.
Right.
And to me, that's the goal. Everything that I buy or start, I look at and say, how will this have an enterprise value and can I get there? I may not exactly know how, but I know that we can figure it out or we can do it. And that may be because of the industry has a lack of technology, expertise, or people are just simply looking at it wrong, and I can see some people have never done it. And then as we're building and we figure it out and then we build it into it.
Well, even like how you and I work together, it's very much of you finding, creating or identifying opportunity, and then I come in and like, all right, let's execute and make this happen.
Yes.
And like with this business acquisition, it's been very much like, okay, we just need to dive into this and learn all the things that we don't know. Like when we were going over this with Tristan yesterday, it's like this is a very seasonal business. There's things that we have to understand. Cash flow is not always the same every month, and how do we figure that out?
Literally building individual financials that are specific to things that we need to see in that business to understand it, to figure out how we can add value and what we can do for that. And like I said, there's this tail end where we're like, all right, we got 1-2 quarters, we're understanding. And what that teaches us and we learn about it is huge. The basics we knew. Yeah. The basics, the value, which said, that's there, that opportunity is there, this is great. But we don't know how to execute yet. We need to buy it. We need to run it. We need to figure out the constraints, everything else. And then as we're doing that, we can build off those fundamentals that we like. If it was simply a business that I'm like, we're competing on price or even distribution or something, I wouldn't have liked it. I wouldn't have wanted it. I would have been like, nope, move on. Yeah. Because I knew we couldn't figure out and do things that would create that enterprise value.
Yeah.
Well, we've got these 3 stages. They're distinct, everyone. And I hope you can see how they mold together, but they are distinct. And if you're good at identifying it, go out and buy. But if you don't, and a lot of people, once again, they work in a business, they understand it so well, they can just go buy a smaller one and they can do things with it. That's great. That's a great way to do it, a quick way to do it. If you're starting from nothing, you start on that service size and then you build into it. Or you just build yourself a job, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. That's a great thing. So there's lots of ways to go. Some people are just fine staying at a business. Other people want entrepreneurship. Like I like the process of creating. That's what I like. I like seeing that opportunity and I like executing on it and seeing what we can do, what we can create. So for me, I literally find joy in the process. Going through the pain and the struggle sucks, but I like going through that process, right? So this comes back to your personality and what you want, but the process, you just can't skip them. You can't go straight to enterprise, right? You have to buy, you have to spend money, that costs resources. If you don't, bootstrap it, figure it out, add capital, investors' money as you go along to exaggerate what you're learning and knowing. Don't do it too soon, right? Figure it out, work it, because the more that you create a path, the more you have to show, the more your value goes up, the more people want to invest in you. And if you are taking investment, you need to be planning on building a big business or enterprise because your investors are going to want it. So how you build and how you create it will kind of depend on not only the resources you have, but where you're going.
Yeah, I think one last thought I have too, to follow up with that is knowing your circumstances, because whether you want to buy or build might just be based on what you're currently at. Like when I had no choice. I was like, I either have to get a job or build my own business. I was not in a position to buy a business. And so I was like, all right, I got to build it. Simple. And then you go with that, where someone else listening to this might be like, well, George, that's great, but I'm not in my 20s. I have kids. I can't just start my own business. So like, then it's like, well, all right, how can you find an acquisition? And it doesn't have to be this massive thing. Like so many people get started with buying a laundromat or all these simple like self-storage. It's like doing these things that you're just doing better than the next person. You're not the expert in it.
Exactly.
You don't have to be
an expert. And not even close. In fact, a lot of people that are the experts are a lot of times the ones that are ripe to be taken over.
Yeah.
And that can be a huge advantage to you when you see people that are experts on the way that they do business, because that's the way it's always been done.
Yeah.
That can create a huge blind spot and an opportunity for you. And I think that partnerships are, I think, a really important part, especially starting out. Remember, once again, like we talked about, there's no such thing as a individual success story, self-made. Don't go down that road. Don't look at it. Get all the help you can. Because if not, you're going to have blind spots that you literally just can't know because you're an individual. So focus on the goal, the outcome, and don't get caught up in the things that you want or think it should be that way. Instead, listen to the market, solve the problem, get to the goal, and acquire resources, knowledge, time, money, distribution, infrastructure, everything that you need to do it, so it's aligned with the goal. Be obsessed with that outcome and the goal, and focus on it and sacrifice everything to get there, and you'll be successful. You'll either learn and have to go do something else, but then when you fail, you'll know exactly why. That'll allow you to see opportunities elsewhere, and you'll get better and better and better.
Awesome.
All right, everybody. Hope that was helpful. That's been our journey, and we'll keep sharing it. So
thanks everybody.